Hi everyone. Can everybody hear me? Hi, good afternoon. I hope everybody's safe and healthy where they're calling from. Just to get the feel of the group, can you put on our chat room where you guys are watching from? I'd like to know where everybody is calling in or like watching this, attending this workshop from. I see a while ago that there were some who are calling from Cavite, Zambales, um, Market Mall, Bulacan. It's nice to see everybody taking the time and investing their time to be in this workshop. Very happy for you guys to join us. All right, great. So I'd like to welcome you guys all for another installment of our Sparkability learning series. My name is Patch. I'm from the Spark Project. I'm the founder and CEO of the sparkproject.com. We are a crowdfunding website and a community that enables creative and conscious social enterprises through learning and technology. We also work closely with other impact driven organizations, collaborating with them on social innovation projects and programs. And for this particular workshop, we're very happy to be partnering with the Social Innovation Group of Globe Telecom. Design research is the practice of understanding human needs and ensuring the voice of the people we serve are included in the strategic design and development of products, services, and programs. For social creatives and enterprises to succeed, a clear understanding of the behaviors, values, and context of our customers and communities will make it much easier for us to create new experiences for them. And for today's workshop, our goal is to help you implement design research projects for your respective enterprises and organizations effectively. And to do that, and before I introduce to you our speaker for today, let's bring him in first. Hi, Birdie.
Hi, Patch. Thanks for
Hi.
having me.
Yeah, great. Okay, so our workshop for today will be run by Birdie Salva. Wait, let me just make sure that um, continue. How ba? Can't seem to.
Thanks to everyone for joining in sa today's session, Ren. So thanks so much for giving us your time, Ren.
All right. So yeah, Birdie Salva. He will be our workshop speaker for today. He's a design researcher with a background in qualitative research, UX design, brand management, business consulting, and systems thinking. Also, industrial design and game design. He is the co founder and general manager of Curiosity for the last 8 years, and he has led teams in conducting qualitative research that applies human-centered design frameworks to clients such as Sun Life, Globe Telecom, Johnson and Johnson's, USAID, and the Fred Hollows Foundation. Prior to starting Curiosity, Birdie worked as a user researcher at an industrial design startup, a brand, and he was also a brand manager for L'Oreal Philippines and the lecturer at the Ateneo de Manila University's School of Management. Okay, wait a minute. All right, hi Birdie.
Hey, Patch.
In case you guys, just a little trivia for everybody attending. Actually, Birdie and I go way back. We were blockmates in Ateneo. We both took management information systems. Quite interestingly, we took the same course there, and actually since then I have been following his work and very proud to see his successes in work and in life. Birdie has been a constant expert in our network here at the Spark Project. We would tap him for our conferences and also for our workshops. So I'm very happy that he took the time to and accept our invitation to run a design research workshop for you guys this afternoon. I feel that now more than ever during this time of pandemic, organizations and social enterprises alike experience are brought to this crossroads now where they have to think of new ways to design and think of new products or services that they can offer uh, and provide value to their customers or communities. So with that, really happy that Birdie is here with us. Um, so Birdie, how have you been doing? How has the quarantine and the pandemic treated you?
So, no, so far, I mean, everything went through a slowdown naman as always. I guess on our end, we're quite very lucky na we all have all the tools like Zoom, Viber calls, all of these tools right now na parang we could actually luckily transition our research work online. So again, super lucky on that end. But yeah, again, anything for you, Patch. Super. I've been a supporter of Spark projects ever since you guys launched the first time.
Yeah. I remember when you launched, we launched at the same time, 2013, diba?
Yeah,
2013. I remember during your launch in your space in your office in Maguindanao,
Maguindanao.
we were there. We had
Yeah.
there for Spark Project. So it's really us supporting, like we were starting out. I consider ourselves batchmates, as in like everybody who started out around that time. I'm so happy that until 7 years after going eight, we're still here. So
Older.
yeah, so before we start your workshop, which I'm excited, can you tell us a little bit about how you sparked your journey into this practice of design research, knowing that yes, we both started out as management information systems undergrad students. How
Sure.
design research?
So I guess entering college now, when we chose MIS, it was something na parang it was the dot-com era. So, panahon ng mga Netscape, Yahoo Messenger, ICQ, all of those things. And it was too late for me to realize na, I think I was fourth year college na to realize like, I'm actually not going to be a programmer and I'm not going to be into that kind of like that kind of techie situation. I love more of marketing. I love more of storytelling. And it was lucky that in, I think, my third year, second year college, I got to visit IDEO. So I went to Stanford, got to visit the campus. I saw IDEO, learned about design thinking, all of those things. And it was such an amazing experience. Now, once I got back, I really told myself, I want to do this. I want to do design thinking. I want to be creating new things and amazing inventions. So after college, went through the traditional corporate style, went through L'Oreal, brand management, all of those things. But after 5 years of that, I said like I want to take the risk, take the entrepreneurial jump. So luckily, I found some people. They had the industrial design startup, and that's what I thought. Parang that's going to be my chance to apply it. Unfortunately, that startup didn't last too long, so 2 years lang yun. But from there, from in while working in event, that's where I realized na at least back then, if people were not really willing to pay for industrial design, but they were willing to pay for the idea of what they'll design. So that's where I thought, what if in the whole design thinking framework, what if I focus specifically on the research part? And luckily, I was introduced to my partner in curiosity, si Pamela. So she was an anthropologist. She also wanted to do design thinking, and I said like, okay, I don't know research, but you do. And on her end, when she said that I don't know how to run a company, but you do. So let's combine forces. And here we are 8 years later. So yeah,
Nice,
that's the whole
nice,
story.
nice story. How things connect with each other. No, that's really cool. Okay, sige, let's start. But before we start, I just want to let all the attendees here this afternoon know that we will have some time for question and answers later. In fact, throughout the workshop, we will have opportunities, or like we will have some um, pause breaks for us to ponder on certain prompts. So throughout the workshop, I encourage everyone to share in their questions, or may it be an insight. You can share them in the chat box. And also, if you have a particular question that you want to ask Birdie later on, you can also use the Q&A box to ask your question. So I'll be here also to be moderating and uh, and monitoring both the chat box and the Q&A box so that we can have time for Q&A. We'll try to answer as much questions later on or throughout this whole workshop. So there, take it away, Birdie. I'm giving you the floor, and hope this afternoon would be very learn-filled for everyone. Okay.
So hi everyone. So again, thank you so much for being with me. We'll be together for the next 2 hours, and my goal here is basically to give you a guide, a quick guide, something that you can actually apply yourself for your own enterprise. Now, what we'll be learning today is something called design research, and it's basically what we do in Curiosity. So I'll be in professor mode today. I will be sharing a lot of concepts to you today. So you will hear a lot of jargon. I will do my best to make sure that all of the concepts are properly explained. I do suggest that if you have a notebook or your notes app you can type down your notes. But at least later on, if you want to Google it, search for more information, find it on YouTube, then you have more things to just simply understand the concepts further. But yeah, so I guess just to start things off, what do we do in Curiosity? So Curiosity, oops. Yeah, Curiosity, we're basically a design research agency. So what we do is that we help organizations, we provide organizations with local insight so that they are more guided when they are trying to design their products or services. So for example, let's say a corporation like Ayala or Globe, they might say that I have an idea, I saw this business model, I saw this product in the US, in Japan, in China, and I want to bring it here in the Philippines. But will it work? Gagana ba yan dito? Parang gumana sa kanila, but gagana ba yan dito? Or perhaps a company like Meralco or Sun Life, they might say that I have a product or I have a service that's working in Metro Manila, but I want to bring it to Cebu, to Davao, to the other parts of the country. Will it work? Or maybe a company like Angkas or Bayad Center might say that I have something existing, but I noticed na it's somehow not performing as to my expectations. What can I do next? All of these questions really rely on people's behaviors, understanding people, their needs, their wants, all of those things. So that's where design research can come in. We mainly use anthropology, business, and design at the mga combined perspectives to be able to provide a really deep understanding of the human person. Now, whenever we have projects, goal natin here is always to challenge assumptions because, again, all of us naman, we have assumptions for our business or our organizations. We think that people want this. We think that people will switch from one service to another. We think this will improve things. All of these assumptions, we have to test. We have to conduct research to be able to validate, tama nga ba to? The worst thing kasi is like parang we are assuming for other people. And example, just to give an example, like I used to be in L'Oreal. So I was selling hair color, yung mga salons, hair color, rebonding. I'm not the market. I don't use it. So for me, parang to be able to say that this is better, this is what women want, it's very, very hard for me to make those assumptions if I personally don't have a deep understanding of it. So when you are doing research, what you're actually contributing to to your enterprise is actually to speak the truths and to represent the voice of the people that you are serving. So you make sure it's like making sure that they are co-creators in the service that you want to give them. And hopefully in that whole process, you make a better experience, you enrich the experience for them. So yeah, just quickly lang, these are like some of the projects that and clients that Curiosity has done. So again, we've been around since 2013. We're a small boutique agency, but luckily naman, we've had clients who've entrusted us with their innovation initiatives. And also pre-pandemic, we've been traveling all over the country kung saan kami kailangan. But now we mainly use Zoom and online research. And when we say design research trend, there's basically three main things that we do. So number one, research and experience audit. This is where we try to understand the problem. So whatever it is that the new service, the new product, whatever it is that a client wants to create, this is where we try to understand the context of the people. Why do they use things? How do they live their lives? What are their challenges? What's their pain point? All of those things. The second thing we do is community co-creation. This would be situations where usually government and foundations, when they say that I acknowledge that the people we are serving are the experts. Mas may alam sila sa challenges nila. For example, let's say teenage pregnancy, violence against women, drugs, AIDS. They know more about these things, and we want them to be empowered enough to come up with their own solutions. We will help them. We will help enable them to do their solutions, but it must come from them. And finally, service design and testing. This would be instances when an organization has something existing now, maybe a storyboard, a low fidelity prototype, or something existing like an existing website, an existing product, and they want simply to test it to see, can people really use it? Is it, in what ways can we make it better? What are the improvements that we can plan out for the future? Now, how does this all relate to you? Parang why is it important to do research for your own enterprises? Well, let's take a look back. 2019 seems so far away now. But what were we thinking about in 2019? So number one, Netflix was featuring Maricondo, so everyone was into decluttering and all of those things. Number two, we were all planning our holiday travels, and I think everyone traveled in one way or another, either locally, internationally. But we were all always seeking out that next travel sale, and yeah, planning our vacations. And finally, everyone again was always complaining about traffic. We're all worried about how do we navigate around it, how do we plan our schedules. We do get stuck in traffic for like 2-3 hours per way to wherever it is that we have to do. Minsan may 1 hour traffic tayo just to attend a 10-minute meeting. So these were our problems in 2019. And looking at 2020 now, what are we worried about? What's important to us? So staying safe, healthy, all of those practices, all of those changes in our behaviors of how we go out, how we disinfect the house, how we keep our loved ones safe, managing our household needs, again, securing our supplies, our food, even like home learning. How do we manage our time and everything around the household? And finally, ensuring our economic survival. So again, a lot of industries have been badly hit, and we are all really struggling. Just trying to make sure that once at least hopefully to be able to recover and revive the economy. So this is what has changed and in such a short span of time. Now the problem is when we come up with our business ideas and our organizations with our foundations, all of those are based on assumptions. And the thing is, what if those assumptions no longer hold true? What if you're in the travel industry? What if you're in the hotel, in the resorts? Paano na? If things have changed, how do we adapt? How do we move forward and to be able to make sure that we are creating new services that are still going to be relevant? So I think this is where research comes in. Research basically tries to understand people's context. What we want to find out here is that um, the people we serve, customers or beneficiaries, we should not simply look at them as numbers. Hindi lang sila, users or customers lang. Everyone has their own, it's very complex. Everyone has their own local context in terms of their financial needs, their values, their beliefs, their behaviors, the city that they live in, the policies that they have to live by, the restrictions and limitations of infrastructure, energy, all of those things. So when we do research and we want to create something new, something that really helps people, the more holistic that we understand them, the better our services will be. The worst thing that we can do is to really stereotype and generalize people. Like parang to say that all women are like this, all men are like that, all middle class are like this. I think that is a very dangerous way to go about designing services, because you might be overgeneralizing, and then you might come off as a very insensitive company. Creating a service na ang daming na-exclude, or it actually doesn't help people. So design research, what we're going to do here is basically it's going to be a very structured way of doing your studies, to discover your insights about the people that you want. We're going to go through the 6 steps. So we're going, parang again, steady lang tayo. I will give you enough time at the end of each step to be able to process that whatever was discussed. We'll have a little Q&A for each one. And yeah, so hope you're all ready. We're gonna get started. Okay, step 1, identifying your research objectives. So every one of you, so I'm assuming that everyone has their own, is in different stages of your own enterprises. Some of you might have companies that have existed for 10, 15 years, na very stable na. But some of you might be starting out pa lang. You have your own initiative, or maybe you're creating a new business or a new organization. So whatever it is, we want to first know before we plan out our research, we want to know first, why are we doing this? What is it that we need? And so I'm going to show you some sample objectives, so we just basically understand where we are. So for example, number 1, discovery stage. Sorry, I'm just gonna open the chat box. I am receiving messages. Is the audio okay? I see here na parang we lost audio. Patch?
For me, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, sige.
Wait.
All right.
Okay,
Sige.
let's Yeah, sige. You
So
can
yeah, all right.
then I'll
So
work on this.
if you're so first thing to find out is parang what stage is your enterprise in, or at least your project. So number one, are you in the discovery stage? You will know if you're in the discovery stage if you're the questions that you want would be, I need to understand the people that I want to serve. I want inspirations. Everyone else is currently serving this, marami na in this industry, and I want to differentiate myself and come up with something new. Or maybe I want to how can I service a new user segment? So my business is existing, but I want to serve a new user segment with something else and make it better for them. Or I have something already and the problem persists, and I just no matter how many times I try to address it. So this is discovery stage. Number two, your enterprise might be in the design and prototyping stage. So this would be, I kind of understand the problem now, and I'm ready to come up with my solution, whatever it might be. So in this case, it would be, I need to understand my users and how they evaluate my concept, my prototype. I need to know if they're able to use it as intended. I need to know if my service or my idea will integrate well with their current systems. So example, gumawa kayo ng software, you make a mobile app, and then it doesn't work well with all of the other softwares and tools or rules of your target user. And finally, maybe I need to create principles to guide my designers, to inspire my designers, my team, whatever it is that they're going to create. Lastly, you might be in the scaling and evaluation stage. So I think you have your product now, and then you're slowly deploying it now, or you want to prepare for the next wave. So the questions that might be in your head, the needs you have in your head would be, I need to know the drivers and barriers. Why are people using my product? Why do they love it? Or maybe with the barriers, why are they not liking it? Why are people not using it as much as I thought they would? It works, but why is it not as effective? I need to know if my service is applicable to other people. Now, maybe okay siya sa Metro Manila, but why is it not working in Palawan, in Bulacan, in Baguio? What's the difference? Or I need to assess the impact. Again, parang were there positive or unintended negative consequences of the service that I created? Or maybe I need further insights than just to simply know what is the next step for me. What should I do next? So the key takeaway here is like design research. If you notice the commonality amongst all of those objectives, design research is always about understanding human needs. Understanding the person. Now, the one thing I want you to understand here is that not everything needs design research. Sometimes you will need other types of research. Specifically, if you need to know like how big is my market. Example, a taxi company approached me once and said, Birdie, how many taxi drivers would be willing to switch to electric taxis? The answer is I don't know, because you don't need me. You need someone else for that one. You need market research. You need to do your big surveys. You need to look at mga big market studies. That's completely something else. So if your question is, I need to know how big my market is. I need to know the general sentiment of the entire population. I need to understand the macro trends, like how many ano ba yung population increase, ano yung population decrease. I need to choose between itong defined options. Do I go with option A, B, or C? And whichever we choose, that's it. That goes to production. These are all information that needs hard numbers. And for that, you need market research or something else. Sometimes, if your challenge is a bit more technical or engineering based, then again, you need science, hard science for that one. So for example, I need to make my solution cost less money. I need to save 50% less in terms of production cost. That's not design research, so something else na yan. Okay, so as long as we're clear na parang if the questions I was presenting earlier or the objectives are what you think your organization needs, then design research will be helpful for you. Okay, so some examples na. Example, some sample objectives. So our goal is to understand how employees are adapting to working from home so that HR can create new programs and policies that will help keep them engaged, fulfilled, and productive for our company. That design research can help understanding people's behaviors. Or our immediate need is to uncover issues about our online platform that is causing a massive drop in user engagement, especially after we uploaded our latest update. Or lastly, I need new insights that can help me design a better food experience so that I can stand out amidst all of the new online food providers today. So if these are some of the examples of your objectives for your company, then again, design research is what you do. All right, so activity number one. Again, my question to everyone here is, at what stage are you with your enterprise initiative, your project, or your whole company itself? What kind of information or insights do you currently need to guide you, to move you forward? And if ever, how will you use this information? Tapos, again, hopefully if you can figure out na rin na parang, do you need design research or something else? So I'll give you all just 1 minute lang, very short lang, maybe write down your answers before we proceed to the next step. And if you have questions, toss it in the chat box. Patch, you'll keep time na lang.
Yep, I'll keep that.
Sige, 1 minute. Then we move to the next. If you have questions, I'll pause my video na rin. So it doesn't have to be super narrow naman. Again, this is like the starting point. You can be very broad naman. All right, shall we move on? All good? Sige.
Okay,
Right.
sige.
Okay, so next, step 2, identifying your research questions. So for me, this is actually the most important step amongst everything. Okay, so I'm going to spend a bit more time on this segment. The rest is madali na yan. Okay, so research questions. Definition muna, what is a research question? Research questions are questions, it's in open-ended questions that if you answer this, it will help you achieve your objectives. So research questions are something that you create so that you are always guided. It guides your research team na parang whenever you're doing your studies, your interviews, whatever it is that you're going to do for your research, you always go back to, am I answering my research questions? And again, if I answer my research questions, I should be able to move. I should have the answer so that I can move forward with my initiative. Okay. Now, I hear it quite often na parang people will tell me, Birdie, nag-research naman ako eh. Nag-interview ako, nag-survey ako, and yet parang I didn't get anything. So, like I did a survey, Survey Monkey, talked to 100 people, and I got their answers, and parang like I still don't know what to do. So on that end, my answer is because sometimes you are asking, you are not exploring enough types of research questions. There are many types of questions, and then I'm going to show you at least in my at least for curiosity, we consider 8 of them. So, and the more types of questions that you cover, I think the richer that you'll have, the more insights and the richer your insights will be to work with. So I'll just go through them through 8 of them. So number 1, definitional. Definitional research questions would be like, I want to understand how people define something, or I want to understand how other people understand something. So for example, if I ask you, what is fun? What is fun for you? Or what is a fun video game for you? I'm sure everyone in this workshop will have their own definitions. Some of you might like something very competitive, action-packed. Some of you might enjoy something na very casual, relaxed lang. Some of you might want na very social games like board games. Every single person might have different ways of expressing or understanding concepts. And if you're going to be designing something, it is very important that you understand how the people you are serving defines certain things. So for example, if you say that, oh, I want my organization to empower women. But what does that mean? What does that mean specifically to the women that you are targeting and that you want to empower? What does empower mean for them? Or in this case, as I put in my example, what are the definitions of vulnerable from the point of view of the community? How do new graduates define having a successful career? Let's say you're a company who wants to hire, you're trying to encourage people to apply in your company. But what does it mean for them today to say that, yes, if I work here, I'm going to have a successful, meaningful career? The more that you understand how people define things, the better you are when you're trying to communicate to them. And when you're making your value proposition, when you're making your promise, you are now speaking their language and then match kayo. So that's definitional questions. Number 2, contextual. Contextual would be you are trying to understand why is something happening. What are all the variables and content that surround and the context that surrounds this phenomenon. So this can be cultural, social, political, technological, economic. What are all the things? Why is something happening? So, for example, why is there a slow uptake in spite of the launch of a more economical product format? We've had a client na ganito na parang, Birdie, we launched something, mas mura to. As in, if you count it, i-calculator mo yan, mas mura siya. Bakit di siya bumibenta? So then, then we explore. Or why are employees disregarding new work policies implemented despite saying in the service that yes, I love this policy, and then in implement an HR, why do people not follow? What is it? Is there something cultural? Is it something in them? But let's try to find out. So those are contextual questions. Number 3, descriptive. Descriptive would be you want to understand literally what is happening. So the what is happening would be parang how are people searching for information today, or what are the information seeking behaviors when they want to learn about investments, or what are the communication gaps in availing of mental health services provided by the government. Literally, what is. So ano yung problems, ano yung kulang, you want people to describe, be descriptive on what is happening. Number 4, evaluative. Evaluative would be, I want to know how effective something is to people. We know that something can be effective, but to what extent it is effective can vary from person to person. So for example, I might find itong food deliveries service really good, but for another person, they might hate it. It still works, the delivery still happened, but iba yung experience namin. So evaluative questions would be parang, again, to what extent is it good? And how do people evaluate something? So, for example, what were the pain points in using the website to purchase their new car loan? In what ways will the new Skyway affect how people choose where they want to work? Ano yung effect ng something, and again, to what extent siya successful or not successful? Through evaluative questions, you'll also find out who are the people not or are being excluded from the service. Is it older people, not digitally literate? Is it restrictive na only for the rich and di siya okay for middle class or lower income? All those things. Next, 5th, comparative. Comparative would be you want to understand how the people you're serving are comparing two concepts, two different things. So for example, what's the difference in childcare practices between mothers in urban areas and in rural areas? How do customers compare this loyalty program to their previous loyalty program or to another company's loyalty program? Whenever people compare things, you gain so much insight as to what is important for them. Parang, yeah, okay, mas okay to, mas mabilis ito, mas madaling gamitin, mas less stress, mas hindi nakahilo, mabilis yung service, okay, customer service, etc., etc. So when you are asking people to compare things, then at least on your end, you also know, okay, this is what's important to them. This is how they describe something as being bad or good or acceptable. Then, mas guided you on what I should be doing. Next, classify. Classify would be, you want to find out parang, how do people categorize things? So for example, let's say if I were to ask you right now, if you go on Netflix, if you go to Netflix, how would you classify all the movies there? You might say na parang, ito action film, ito comedy, ito romance. Pero paano, you also have ways na parang, what if it's animated? What if it's real life? What if it's documentary? People have different ways of classifying things. And sometimes when you're creating something, you're creating a new service, you want to find out how are people going to classify you? Lalo na if your service is so new. You're so new na you feel like parang, no, I should not be in that category. I'm something else. But if people don't see you that way, then mas mahirapan kayo in communicating your service, or hindi kayo ma-accept nila. So it's best to also try to understand how are people classifying things. When you say that parang, yes, my product or my service is a good investment, but for people that you're talking to, is that really how they understand investments? What if for them na, no, di ka investment, gastos ka. So yun, at least parang, again, better understanding. Next, to what extent? So to what extent, again, quite similar to yung evaluative, to what extent is something helpful or not? So again, it might be effective, but to what extent? So to what extent do employees feel that they are part of the company? For some people, they might say yes, okay. For some people, they might say no. Why? What is the difference that is causing the difference in the result of the experience from these two groups of people? So that, if you want to help one group, then at least mas alam mo kung how to. To what extent are tutoring centers helpful in a child's educational needs? Parang yes, they're learning, but maybe not enough. So, is there things that for you to improve? And lastly, processual. Processual would be you want to know what is the sequence of steps. What is the step-by-step process that the person will go through if they're performing or going through your product, your service. So for example, how do disaster-affected residents assess if they are ready to go back to their homes? Let's say you're in government, you're in an NGO or foundation, and you want to make people go back to their homes, but for them, if they're not ready, because again, in their minds, that's not how they think through it, you will face resistance. So you want to find out ano nga yung process nila. Last example, how do home cooks determine if a sauce is worth buying and trying out with their family meals? How do they experiment? How do they say na parang from seeing it on the shelf, opening it, smelling it, testing it at home, any step-by-step process of people. So again, it can also help you with your marketing and sales channels if you're going to be designing something to make that happen. So it's a lot. I mean, again, there's a lot of definitions. Again, and there's no really hard and fast rules. All of these things, it's really what, at least for on us curiosity, these are some of the guides that we follow. So yeah, one very important distinction, and this is where a lot of people get things wrong. Research questions are not interview questions. If you notice, research questions that I was showing before, these are things that are stated in a way that you cannot literally ask someone. I cannot ask those questions directly to Patch. For example, Patch, let's say I'm interviewing you for a study. I will not tell Patch na parang, hey Patch, how do disaster-affected residents assess if they will return to their homes? That is not the responsibility of the people you are studying for them to it's not their responsibility to answer. Research questions is you. That's your responsibility to answer. What you will ask people though are interview questions. Interview questions, these are phrased in a way na parang literally silly. So example, Patch, how's your day? Patch, how's your internet connection? Are you happy with your internet provider? How is Zoom working for you? Those are questions na parang kayang sagutin ni Patch. It feels very conversational. Now, once Patch tells me all of their answers and all the people I'm studying, those will help me answer my research questions. Clear? Important distinction. Okay, so, little quiz. And si Patch ang magiging
Ay, oh my God. Sige.
Patch, ikaw maging representative of the participants. Okay, so
Right.
little quiz here. What is the difference between research and interview questions? So, what are the pain points of a person when starting a business in Metro Manila? Research question or interview question?
Oh my. Um, interview siya.
No, this is a research question. An interview question would be something like parang, yes, go Willen. Tama yung sagot mo. All right. So interview question again is something it's something that you ask someone. You ask someone directly, like parang, Patch, how was it when you started your business in Metro Manila? Like, what were the challenges in opening up finding your first customers or going through government process? Those would be the interview questions that answers the research question of what are the pain points of people when they start business in Metro Manila. Hey, Brian Tanseng, welcome.
Okay, so let the attendees answer.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, next. So what was your latest food delivery experience like? Yeah. So easy lang. Again, these are interview questions. And you'll notice the interview questions are very related to the personal experience of the person that you want to study. You want them to share their stories. Again, behaviors habit natin. Okay. Next. What tools do you use to complete your inventory and record keeping tasks? Interview. Yeah. So this would be interview questions. Again, the person's personal experience with the tools that they're using. How does a person's age affect their view on the climate crisis? Yep. Okay, get someone. So yeah, research question. Again, imagine like how can someone literally answer this? Hey, Patch, how does a person's age affect their view? Mahirap yun eh. That's not the response of the person you're talking to. That's your job. I mean, as the researcher. To answer.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Can you recall a time when you were extremely frustrated at customer service? Interview. All right. What are people's shopping behaviors and strategies during Christmas? How is it different given COVID? What will be different in people's behaviors during Christmas with COVID compared to other previous years? These are all the research questions. All right. So yeah. So get to your lesson. Okay. So key takeaway. the more research questions that you are able to cover in your study, the more perspectives that you will have. If you stick to just one question lang, yes, you'll learn something, pero I feel like if you'll get that feeling na parang, is that it? Like, nasagot ko ba yung, do I have enough information to guide the design of my service or whatever it is that I'm trying to create? So again, the more that you cover, the richer things will be. And again, there's no hard and fast rules on how many, how much, how few. Research, it should always be continually ongoing. You are always learning in your organization. Okay, so activity time. So bring out your pens and papers or notepads, and I want you to write down, based on the objectives that you identified for your organization, write down at least 3 research questions that you are curious about, that you think that if I answer these questions, it will help me achieve my objectives. Okay, and then phrase it in your own way, as you've seen in the previous example. So you have to phrase it in a question, open-ended question. Okay? So I'll give you 3 minutes to, para again to think it over, and then maybe some of you can share your plans. So I'll give 3 minutes muna to just simply absorb, think it over, and if you have questions, post it in the chat and I'll answer it.
Okay. Yeah, Birdie, I have some questions. Actually, it's a
Yes.
back lang, the step one.
Sige.
Attendees here asked, when it comes to defining your objectives, how is there a specific, like, how narrow should it be, or should it be very focused, or how broad should it be when you define um, your research objective for step one?
Well, again, narrow is such is vagrant. So parang I think it's more na parang what is it that you want to achieve? Yan lang naman na I need to improve my thing. I need to learn something to create something new. I need to see, like, parang is this set of features or design, is it going to work?
Mhm.
So as broadly as that long is
Okay.
fine.
And then for the research questions naman, you mentioned 8 questions, diba? Like types of questions. When you start creating research questions for your own research, do you have to cover all?
No. You don't have to cover all. And sobra-sobra rin yun. So it really depends na nga kung ano yung kailangan.
Okay.
So I'll give one clear example. Let's say I had a client who said that, so they deal with baby products. So they said that, okay, and this was pre-COVID. So they said that, Birdie, we've noticed that people nowadays are iba na yung playtime nila with their kids, with specifically like toddlers, very small toddlers level. Iba na yung playtime ngayon. They go to Kidzania, wala na ngayon mga open. Diba dati when you say playtime, sometimes people imagine, oh, may park, people running in the park, may seesaw, may swing, may open grass and fields, climbing up trees. That doesn't exist today because we don't have any more parks and people are usually limited in their condos. So they were wondering, what is the new definition of play? Such that when they're going to design their new communication, their new toys, their new products, what is it? How do people understand play? So for us, okay, definitely we need to find out definition. How do mothers today define playtime? Like example, is playtime just simply putting Cocomelon on YouTube for the kid? Is that playtime? Is it reading together? Is it washing together, cooking together? What is playtime for them? Any more different things. We wanted to understand contextual, like how are people playing today? Like how are they playing? Why is it that people keep going to Kidzania or mga klaseng playgrounds? What is it about those areas that attract people, and why is it that dun sila that is the designated play area for them? We wanted to find out evaluative. Again, how do they evaluate things? From playgrounds to YouTube to mga books today to the toys na nilalaro nila. How do they evaluate different types of toys? What is a good toy for them to play? Those were the things. Parang again, you just choose them. What is it that you need so that you can answer your objective? You can address your objectives.
Okay. I think there are some questions here on the chat.
Okay.
One is, can we use identifying hypotheses or assumptions instead of research questions?
Sure. I think assumption for me, yung mga assumptions and hypothesis mo, those actually go to the objectives. So your objective. So, parang example, let's say I'm a company like Ayala. So I'm Ayala, and I said parang there is a new business model, there's a new franchise or business that I want to bring into the Philippines, and I think it's going to be a hit. I think it will provide access to this thing. It'll be cheaper, it'll be faster, people will love it, and I will put this in every corner, para siyang Starbucks na you'll see it everywhere in every mall, and people will love it. That is the assumption. Like parang it's going to be faster, it's going to be better, it's going to be accessible. That's the that's the assumption. From there, then I'm going to design my research questions. In what way do people say that? How do people evaluate that service? Um, if people were to compare that to something else, how would they compare it? How do people understand that service, especially if it's very new? So yeah, I would put hypothesis as part of the objectives, and then I'm going to choose my research questions to be able to address that.
That. All right. Yeah, like the three
Okay.
minutes is up.
Sige.
I think we can now.
All right. Anyone in the audience who wants to share their research questions? Kung wala, we'll move on na lang muna, and then kahit na later na lang. Sige.
Okay.
At mahirap eh. I guess if we were in real time na we're all in the same room, it'll be much easier. I can't see your faces. All right. So next, now that you have your questions, now the next question is, okay, how do we answer those questions? And this would be your research methodology. So the thing about research methodology is that often people go to the data gathering technique. People might say para, yeah, no, research tayo, tara, mag-FGD tayo. Or yeah, let's do a survey. Let's do an online survey. Okay, yeah, let's talk to some people. And I'd like to take you back muna. Parang before selecting what is it that you you will use as your research, as your data gathering technique, I want you to figure out first what is your analytical frame. So this is another concept. Analytical frame would be your plan or your framework on what data is it that you want to collect, how you want to analyze it, and if ever, what would be the output of the analysis. As a metaphor nga, would be a doctor. Let's say you go to a doctor and you tell doctor, Doc, I'm feeling sick. Does the doctor automatically get a thermometer and does the doctor automatically get a thermometer, their stethoscope, or something else to probe you? For the doctor, what will go through their mind would be, okay, you say you're feeling sick, and you're saying that parang, oh, you're coughing, you feel feverish. On their end, they will identify first what data do I need to be able to properly assess you. Parang, okay, I need to take your temperature, I need to take your heart rate, I need to see the inside of your mouth, I need to feel your pulse, your blood pressure. So once the doctor knows what data that they need, then they'll choose the tool, which would be the stethoscope, etc., etc. So you should act the same way. If you're going to do your research, before you say na parang, oh, mag-FGD tayo, mag-interview tayo, mag-survey tayo, pause muna and find out what is the data that I need to collect. What data will help answer my research question? And I listed down a few samples, but again, there's many types of ways of going about this. So I'll just go through some examples to help you get started. And again, feel free to Google this after, just to learn more about it. So step number one, cognitive mapping. Cognitive mapping would help in terms of how people categorize things, how do people define things. So cognitive mapping would include things like, like how do they understand a concept? For example, let's say a sauce. Let's say you have a new sauce or new dish or new flavor that you want people to test out. You want to find out, parang, okay, how do people evaluate this? In what way will they say na parang, yeah, masarap ito? So that's what you want to find out. Parang, are they evaluating something based on the color, the appearance, the viscosity, the aroma? When Curiosity was doing a study for a detergent bar, and we wanted to find out, parang, how do people say that a detergent bar is great, is good, is effective? Is it really bula lang? Is it really yung effect, yung puti lang after they finish washing? Apparently not. Ang daming lumalabas. For example, habang nagbababad sila, kailangan nila makita na mabula. Kailangan nila maramdaman with their fingers na oily, na soapy siya. Kailangan nila makita na nagiging madumi yung tubig kasi natanggal. Kailangan mabango. Habang kinukusot nila, kailangan naririnig nila yung swishing, yung sound ng bubbles. kailangan hindi siya masakit, hindi siya mahapdi sa kamay habang kumukuskus ako. Pag sinampay ko na siya, kailangan mabango, kailangan visual nakikita ko na naging malinis siya, kailangan hindi amoy kulob pagkatapos. So people have so many ways of evaluating things. And again, this is where cognitive mapping can help. If you can find out what are the ways, or at least how people classify things, it'll really help you understand things better. So for example, in terms of sauce, when they say color and appearance, it might include na something that's darker is more preferred. Bakit? Kasi darker means richer. Viscosity would be thickness or not thick. Again, in their minds, they might think na, oh yeah, basta thicker, mas ano yan, pag mas malapot, mas yummy yan. Kung masyadong malabnaw, matubig yan. Aroma, again, mabango ba, masyadong matapang. Taste, again, is it too salty, too sour, too sweet, whatever it is. So the better you're able to classify all of these things, the better you can design your service or product. So yeah, again, these are examples. These are examples of the results after you gather the data. But this would be, again, the framework here would be cognitive mapping, is that you're trying to understand animal classifications. Okay, next. Next, another favorite framework of mine is strategies and workarounds. In Tagalog, ano yung mga diskarte ng tao? So strategies and workarounds would be, how do people overcome obstacles in order to gain something? And ito yung, when people don't have a formal solution, they find ways to be able to go through it. And it might be informal, it might not be perfect, but for them, it's better than nothing. And this is always very interesting for us. Because like, if you can help them not go through this mga workarounds and mga diskarte, just make it into a formal service, they might appreciate it. So for example, like in this photo here, just to share like what's happening in this photo is that this woman is actually watching her TV in her phone. Oops. Yeah, so she's watching TV in her phone, and for her kasi daw, she's borrowing the internet of her neighbor. And this is the only spot in their whole house na kung saan niya nakuha yung wifi. So kailangan niya i-clip dyan. Tapos yun, may TV na siya. Sige. So yeah, diskarte, again, workarounds would be very interesting. Whenever you're talking to people, it's always nice to hear, like, again, when sabi natin kanina, processual, you want to understand what is the step-by-step process of people, or descriptive, you want people to literally describe what they do. This is where you're trying to figure out parang saan sila nahihirapan and how do they go about things. For example, let's say people now nahihirapan sila to go online banking, lalo kung masyado naman ang tao. So they might say, oh yeah, I log on at midnight because I know that people are not online and mas less traffic. Or people might say that dalawa kami nag-video call sa bahay, so parang I have to stay in the bedroom, and because I'm in the bedroom, I have to change the background para hindi nakakahiya. All of these things are mga workarounds of people, and the more you can learn from those, the more you know that are you really addressing a pain point of people? Because if you remove this pain, they might be willing to pay for it. Okay. Next, artifact analysis. Artifact analysis would be understanding physical objects. Kung hindi physical object, digital object. But it's all about understanding the object in as many ways as possible. So you want to understand about the material, the aesthetic of it, how people interact with this thing, and what is the value to people. Why is it, what kind of value in terms of functional value, social value, is it giving to people? So as an example, we did a study before for an LPG brand, and their question to us was, why are people sticking to charcoal and wood, given that it's very, very harmful for them, inhaling the smoke or causing smoke particles in their eyes? There's so many negative effects, pero we already made LPG very affordable for them, but why are they not using it? So for this one, as we were talking to the people using charcoal and wood to cook, we were trying to find out what is it the quality of wood compared to charcoal, compared to LPG or butane, that makes people keep using it. And they were telling us it's free in our area. You literally just go to the backyard, get wood. Walang problema. And it's flavorful. Minsan daw it gives itong nice smoky flavor to it. Or they might say that na kung matagal yung kailangan mo lutuin, kailangan mo magpakulo, masyadong magastos yung LPG. So for them, pagka I'm going to cook something really fast, then I will use LPG. But if I'm going to cook something that needs to simmer and stew, then mas makakatipid ako if I use wood kasi libre. But of course, may mga problems. I know na matagal siya, mahirap siyang um, mahirap siya na to set up. Sometimes nga mausok siya, all those things. So yun, they were telling those naman. But what this reveals to us rin is how do people evaluate convenience and economic constraints. Na, I will put up with the smoke because it's free. And given my economic status and my situation, I'll go with the free. So what we were learning from these things actually na parang depending on your income level, people have different repertoires of their mga solutions nila, of their energy solutions. So if you're on the richer side of things, then you completely stop using wood and you use LPG tanks. But kung naubusan ka ng LPG tank, then you might have some uling just in case, or you might have some backup na butane na maliliit na canister just in case. So yeah, this was interesting. And what we were telling our client is you cannot fully wean people away from one energy source given their level of income, given na minsan precarious na hindi sigurado lagi na may sweldo for the month. They always have to strategize and make sure na marami silang options. So success for you is not to completely remove certain options, but to just simply try to make your options more affordable, more accessible, etc., etc. So this would be artifact analysis. Parang you're trying to study the physical objects or digital objects that they're interacting with. Okay. Last for this one, stakeholder mapping. Stakeholder mapping would be you're trying to understand what are the relationships between multiple people in a service. So let's say, like a branch manager to a retailer to the microfinance institution, ano yung relationships of each one to another? And let's say you are creating a service to help the customer or the branch manager. You want to find out parang in what way ba siya na-affect with the other stakeholders? In what way ano yung mga what are the things that they have to give to the others? What are the things that they are receiving from the others? Ano yung mga policies or ano yung mga agreements that they have with one another? And ano yung pain points? So that you, when you want to make things better, you want to make your service better, then you can step in and do those things. So for example, let's say you have mga insurance companies and they said that an insurance company might want to help someone of a lower income segment, but an insurance company is very strict. You have to pay us every 15th or every 21st. But the lower income segment might have irregular salaries. Lalo kung government sila, minsan very late yung salaries. So they might think na, I really want your insurance, I'm willing to pay, but I really cannot commit to your strict deadlines. Can you be flexible? So those are opportunities to be able to innovate and create something that, again, is appropriate for the people you want to service. Okay. So those are samples. Again, there's many, many more frameworks. Moving on. Once you have your framework, once you know the data that you want to collect, now is the time to choose, okay, what is the data gathering technique that I'm going to choose? So this is data gathering technique is usually called research methods. So you have a choice. You can go qualitative or quantitative. And on the qualitative side, this would be more of, it answers the questions of how and whys. The quantitative is more of how much or how many. For the rest of this workshop, we'll be sticking to the qualitative side of things. So marami to. Especially if you're in the UX industry, you're doing something digital, there's many, many tools available. But again, for the sake of this session, we'll stick to the qualitative side of things. Okay. So yun, my favorite and the most often that we use is in-depth interviews. So this would be one-on-one. You have a one-on-one interview either pre-pandemic sa bahay ng tao, their place of work, in a coffee shop, but now usually Zoom or Viber, Facebook calls. And in one-on-one interviews, you ask your questions. You ask your questions to really learn as much as you can about them. And this is very helpful if you want to understand yung personal context nila. Like, parang, how's your day? How do you cook? Can you show me your house? And parang, can you tell me why? All of those things. So yeah, one-on-one interviews. The next thing is observations. So observation is that you are now looking, and you, the researcher, you really have to use your own senses to look, to observe, to feel what is happening. And observations is very useful to complement your interviews because sometimes people are not able to articulate something, but they act it out. I mean, example, when you tell someone, hey, do you like Do you find exercising important? Oo, importante mag-exercise. Oh yeah, parang so do you go to exercising often? Hindi. Bakit? Hassle eh. So observe, ano parang, in their heads, they are rationalizing, they're explaining logically parang why they think exercising is important, but somehow, but why? Why are you not behaving that way? So this sort of observation can come in. Parang, can you show me how you get ready to go to the gym? And then, even better, samahan mo siya to go to the gym. And you can see parang how much time the person takes to prepare, how much time they take to travel, how much time they take to park, and all of those things. So observing will really reveal a lot of things that people might not be able to say, or even they might not be aware of. Hindi nila alam na ito pala yung ginagawa ko until, you bring it up to them. Now, when I say observation, you can actually observe in three ways. You can observe by following the person, you can follow the object or follow the space. Following the person would be a day in the life. So, for example, a day in the life of Patch while he's handling Spark project. So, parang like I might try to understand and watch, just simply observe Patch. What time does he work? What time does he take a break? How many meetings does he have? What time does he have time to really, do yung mga cooking, eating, and then finally typing, doing work, and finally sleeping at night. So you follow the person, and you really get to know ano nga ba yung reality nila. What are the constraints that they face? Following the object would be something like application form. So let's say you're a bank or you're an insurance company. The moment that you submit your application form, you literally follow the application form as it goes from customer to the branch, to a processing, to legal, blah, 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 and saan siya dumadaan, and saan nagkakaroon ng bottlenecks, and bakit nagkakaroon ng bottlenecks. And finally, following the space would be you plant yourself in an area and you simply observe everything that happens. So you want to improve a COVID testing center, go to a COVID testing center, sit there, observe everything as it happens, see where people are having problems, see kung saan nagkaka-bottleneck, see kung saan people seem confused or lost or tanong ng tanong, see where people feel agitated or annoyed na, and just simply observe. And after you observe, then you do your interviews just to get more context into things. Next, you can do concept testing. So concept testing, again, usually pagka one-on-one kayo, or pwede rin sa FGDs, where you show things, you show storyboards, you show videos, you show your mock-ups that people can touch and play with. You show things to them, and then so that you can get their feedback on it. Do they understand it? Do they like it? Do they hate it? Do they like it in concept, but once they touch it, ang hirap palang gamitin? All those things will reveal itself in this kind of study. Participatory design would be something where you say that the people I want to serve should help me design it themselves. And this is where, like I said before, you acknowledge na experts sila. Hindi ako yung pinakamagaling dito, and I want them to be part of it. What you're seeing in the photos here was a workshop that I conducted with kids, as in there were 12 to 19-year-old, and then the goal was to learn more about how to prevent teenage pregnancy. So people were, I asked them to draw activities that they really want to do instead of inuman lang, instead of para nakatambay lang lagi. If they had the opportunity, if my money was not a problem, what would they want to do? And they were drawing things like, they want dance, they want gyms, they want concerts, they want sports fest, they want whatever. So they were drawing a lot of things so that at least on my end, I understand it from their perspective. The photo on the right, they were actually role playing. They were literally telling me na how is it that they learn about sex, how do they talk to their parents about it, and what is it that they really wish the actual, ano yung gusto nilang actual conversation sana, because it's currently not happening. So this is participatory design. You acknowledge someone else as the expert, and they are not simply source of data, they are also designing the solution with you. And finally, usability testing. So on a more tech side of things, you want people to try things out. So this is where you want to find out na madali bang gamitin, mahirap ba, mabagal, all of those things. So you give people a certain set of scenarios or tasks. For example, you have a new mobile app or a shopping, you have a shopping platform. You give it to someone, you tell them, can you make an account? Can you search for itong information? Can you try buying this? Can you cancel your order? Can you find where the search bar is? You give them certain set of tasks so that they perform it, and then you're observing them, to see kung saan ba sila nahirapan, and then you just ask your follow-up questions. Parang, bakit ka dito pumunta? Ba't ka nahirapan? Ba't hindi mo ito nakita? Et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. things like that. And usability tests can be moderated or unmoderated. Moderated would be literally kasama mo siya. So over Zoom or in person, katabi mo siya. Unmoderated, there are mga software tools available na you let someone do it on their own and it's recording the screen for them. Then ikaw, you just watch the video na lang afterwards. Okay, so yeah, again, lots of tools. And the challenge, of course, now is given the pandemic, may limitations. So I know you can, but I highly advise against doing in-person interviews now, given COVID and social distancing. So luckily, there's a lot of tools. So you have Zoom, you have messaging apps, you have social media platforms, Instagram. All of these are tools for you to gather data. You can ask people to submit photos, submit videos. You can chat with them, use emojis. All of these things will be able to, again, as long as you're clear on the research questions that you want to answer, feel free to be creative on using whatever tool is available. One more thing rin na you have to be careful rin is to make sure that you are not excluding certain people who do not have access to technology. So let's say you want to service the bottom of the pyramid and wala silang Zoom, wala silang laptop. So you got to find other ways. Okay, so key takeaway for this segment, before you proceed na, let's do FGDs, let's do surveys, let's do interviews, choose first what is your framework for analysis, so that you know exactly what kind of data you want to gather. Para at least when you're doing your interviews, you're doing your FGDs or so, hindi ka random. Very, very clear ka na parang, I know what I want to find out. Okay, so yeah, that's section number 3. So again, I want to invite everyone, go back to the research questions that you wrote down. What type of data do you need? Is it opinions? Do you need to see how do people do something? You want to see kung nahirapan ba sila? Whatever it is, whatever type of data that you want, and then choose any data gathering technique that you need. So again, I'll give you 3 minutes, and then if you have any questions in the chat, toss it.
Birdie, they can also use the chat to give or share what kind of
yes,
parang that will be, they think that's appropriate for their research project. Ayan, we have some questions in the chat box.
Okay.
First is from Will. How do you quantify cognitive mapping when people have different tastes or preferences?
Yes. So when you're doing research like this, na qualitative, your goal is not to find out na parang, is not to find something that, okay, you're going to talk to like only maybe 10, 20 people. So it will not be representative of a whole population. When you are doing this in qualitative research, your goal is to find out ano yung mga indicative things, like ano yung mga initial patterns, parang sources of inspiration or sources of things that might lead up to more things. So your goal here is not to find out na parang everyone wants the darker tasting sauce or the darker colored sauce. That's not your goal here. What you want to find out is like, why do people like dark colored sauce? Why does it give an impression that it is richer and yummier? That's what you want to find out. Or in what way does dark colored sauce fit well with this itong product type na to? That's all you want.
Mm-hmm.
And once you know that, later on, you can do your market research. Now you can do a survey. Example, you have sauce na dark colored red, sauce na dark colored blue, and dark colored purple. Then you do your survey, test it with 1,000 people, and if 600 of that 1,000 says I like A, 300 says I like B, and 100 says I like C, then you go with A. So later pa yun.
Okay. We have another question from Brix. Is it possible that for a particular design research, one may use 2 or more analytic frames?
Yes. So again, use as many as you need. So yeah, these are all tools. As a researcher, and if you're a design thinker, UX designer, these are all your toolkits. And the more you know, the more of this you understand. And as bala mo to, like anytime you're doing your study, it's always para at the back of your head, I know this, I can use this. So yeah, there's no rule na limit yourself. All of this is in your toolkit. The more you know, the more powerful you are when you're doing your studies.
Mm-hmm. And then Si Hao Lim asks, what are ways to access community that has limited internet connection to conduct effective remote qualitative research?
Sure. So luckily in the Philippines, very mobile literate yung country. And also Zoom, sorry, not Zoom, Viber or Facebook Messenger is actually quite prevalent in here. So if you're able to determine that the participant you want to talk to has a smartphone, is able to use Facebook Messenger or Zoom or Viber, then you can conduct like online calls. Kung hindi, literally phone call na lang. But as much as possible, it's also nice to have video calls and stuff. If they do not have load to buy load, then you give them load. So you send them through Gcash or Paymaya or digital money so they can buy load. But at least when you're doing your interview, they have no excuse. You just bought them 1 gig of data. You will have their time. If they cannot buy, another way would be you find someone. Example, you get their neighbor, their spouse, their kid who has the digital device to be with them, and then like for them to use the device of someone else to do the study. If that's still not an issue, if that's still not possible, then you can meet up in person. Practice social distancing na lang. But again, keep yourself safe. Keep yourself and the participant that you want to talk to safe.
Mm-hmm. When can we say that the number of participants that we are including in the research are representative or are enough?
So that's the next one.
Okay.
That's activity number 4.
And then what? Another question from Brian: what happens when answers to different toolkits conflict with each other?
Sure.
Use
So
toolkits.
yeah, so definitely there will be again, every person will reveal something else. Example, if I talk to 3 mothers, and as 3 mothers will reveal na parang, yeah, they like this product because of blank, and I talk to the next 3 mothers, and these 3 mothers hate the product because of blank. It's your task now to be able to analyze things. Okay, what factor is common amongst the 3 who love it, and what factor is common amongst the 3 who hate it, so that you now understand. Okay, you now have personas. Like, parang, okay, if a customer fits persona A, I know that they will like it. If a customer fits persona B, I know they'll hate it. So, yeah, like ganyan lang naman na, again, different toolkits might reveal different things, but that's on you as a researcher to be able to really identify. And if ever it's still not revealing itself enough, then perhaps you might need to talk to a few more people pa. Or maybe switch up your research questions or your techniques.
Okay. And just a comment from Sihao Lim. Perhaps you might share maybe a little later about setting up remote research. How do you overcome language barrier also? Let's say your core research team doesn't speak the local language.
Sure. So definitely language is very, very important because again, a lot of concepts come into language. Um, Option 1, you hire someone else to do the interview for you, and then hopefully they can translate it to you later on. Yeah, actually, option 1, someone you hire someone else to do the interview, and then maybe they can transcribe it, translate and transcribe it for you. Option 2, you hire someone and you also have a translator right by your side. So while the interview is going on, example, it's over Zoom, while the interview is going on, someone else is live translating it for you. So, I mean, you really have to rely on external talent to be able to help you out there.
All right. Okay, I think we can proceed to the next step.
All right. So next, research participants. So who do we want? Who do we want to study? So now we know the technique on how we will gather the data. Next is who. So in research participants, usually they call it research sample, this does not always have to be a person. Research participants or research samples can be people, it can be places, it can be objects or settings. So it doesn't always have to be people. Example, parang the research participants for my study would be food halls. And I choose the food hall in Rockwell, in Mega Mall, in one near a university campus. Parang ganyan. So it doesn't always have to be people. And in terms of research participants, you can also divide it then across 2 things. You can have key informants and informants. A key informant is someone who can give you a broad context. They are industry experts, or they are someone who can give you a macro perspective. So example, let's say I want to study about schools. How are schools and students adapting to COVID and remote learning? A key informant would be the principal, the school director. This can be like the guidance counselor, someone who can give again a big picture perspective. The informants, this would be the specific people who I really who can give me on the ground information. This would be the parents, the students, the teachers. Uh, yeah, mainly those three. So those would be informant levels. So just be clear lang na para who you want to talk to. Kasi example, let's say healthcare. You want to go to healthcare, informants can be the doctors, can be the patients. Your key informants could be like the director of the hospital, or let's say a representative from DOH who can give you the perspective of the new universal healthcare bill. Parang ganyan. When you are choosing your participants, your goal is to have a diverse sample. So it's a diverse sample, so there varied a lot of variables in it. But with this varied sample, your goal is to find patterns. What is common among them despite the variety? So for example here, let's say I'm doing a study and then there's 8 participants. And in this 8, I made a mix. I have 8 differences in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of household income, in terms of are they a current customer or not. And with this sample of 8, I want to find out that what is common amongst them. So if all 8 of them actually share one common pain point, like they all universally hate something, then it gives me a very good indication that parang that is priority number one for me to fix. That is the number one pain point I have to fix, because regardless if they're male, female, young, old, rich, poor, they all hate the same thing, and that's important for me. So when you are designing and selecting your participants, number one rule for you is to find out what variables do you think is most important to your research. So do you think gender is a thing? Example, if you're doing a study for feminine napkins, you're not going to add any guys there. You're not going to add any male, so it's definitely female. So is gender a thing? Do you need male and female representation, or do you just need male only or female only, or is it sexual preference? We did a study for personal lubricants, so we also had to make sure that we had the representative of sexual orientations as well. Next, age. So is age important? Again, we have certain assumptions about age. Younger might be more digitally literate. Senior citizens might be less digitally literate. Younger might have less responsibilities and more time and less money. Older will have more responsibility, less time, and more money. So in what way is age important for you? Should they be married or single? Should they be of a certain income level or not? Should they be current users or non-users of a certain thing? Should they have experienced something before? Example, let's say you want to do a study about airlines. Do you want a certain segment to represent people who travel every month, and you have certain people who represent they travel only once per year? Maybe because you're designing a promo product for the airline. So choose first which variables are important to you, and that will help determine the criteria for your participant mix. Sometimes though, again, like I said, sometimes your study doesn't have to be people, it can be locations. In this case, in what I'm showing you now, we studied areas. So we were doing a study for an industrial park, and we wanted to find out what were the challenges of people on getting to work. So how were people commuting? So, what were the challenges of getting to work? So what we did was we planted ourselves in certain locations around this industrial park, from the admin lobby to this church here, to that highway there, and so on and so forth. We just stayed there, and whoever we saw that we know were employees, we just ambush interview them. Just talk to them for like 5 to 10 minutes, just to simply learn how long did they travel to get to the place, how far was their commute, how much did they spend, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't. In this case, we didn't know who we would bump into, but we knew the locations, we knew the entry points of this industrial park where we wanted to study and observe. Next, when you're also studying things, it doesn't always have to be one single person. So you can also do it in terms of can be like in terms of households or a different unit. So in this case, we were doing a study about remittances, and we wanted to learn the experience of OFWs, people abroad who were sending money to someone who would receive it here. So in this study, we had to choose like a household of one sender and one receiver. And then again, it's very general, like, at least someone from Metro Manila, Laguna, Bulacan, but at least in the bottom, we just wanted to make sure that we have representation from people who use various types of digital wallets and various usage of remittance centers, and they must at least all be smartphone users. So these are various ways of going about choosing your sample. Now, the thing about doing research is that you have to be careful that you do not jump into too early conclusions. So when you talk to one person, and then, again, I'm sure you're all innovators, you're all enterprising people. So I know the temptation is high that after you talk to one person and this person tells you their problems, you feel like, para, I can fix that. I know I know your problem. I can fix your problem right now if I do this and do that. I suggest that you hold on to your ideas first. Try to make sure that you cover as many participants as you can. And then, because the more that you talk to people, the more that you will see that problem of one person is different from problem of another person. The better that you see the patterns, the root underlying cause that creates all the problems that is shared by all the people, the better you will be able to make something that is relevant, to a wider group of people. So yeah, if you talk to one person, you will have a solution, definitely. But talk to five person, you will now finally understand the problem that you're trying to solve. And it's just a waste of effort to create something that's not actually addressing the problem. So key takeaways, when you're doing qualitative research, you don't need to talk to 100 people. 10, 15, 20, 24, 30. You don't need to talk to too much people. You can just start with just a small sample. But given that you're going to talk to just a few, a smaller number, you really have to make sure that you're talking to the right profiles. So you have to make sure that you're investing enough time and effort to find and recruit the right person. Because if they're all similar, if they're all from the same similar background and profile, all their answers will be similar and you're not going to learn much. And you'll know it. I mean, after the third interview that you do to this person, you might feel like, why am I getting the same answer? I'm not learning anything new. Then perhaps it's time to make sure that you change the profiles of the people or change your questions. Okay. So with this one, again, we go back to your research methodology. Like, what is it that you want to do? Are you observing? Are you doing interviews? Are you doing concept testing? Whatever it is that you choose for your methodology, then it's time to choose, okay, who are the people or what are the settings or places or objects that you need to study? And again, put aside time and budget. What's more important is that you get the profiles right. And then you deal with the time and budget later on. So any questions? I think 5 minutes is too long. Let's stick to 3 minutes. And yeah, if you have any questions, toss it in the chat. None?
At this point, Birdie, when you identify the people that you would like to observe or interview, ano na yun, parang in a way that's pre-work already, or that's something that you have already thought about even before you get into the design research project. You've already identified.
So for curiosity, this is actually, we haven't even started, at this point, we haven't even won the project yet. So when Curiosity receives a research brief from a client, we do everything up until this point. And this is the research design, the proposal that we submit. So all of this work, you haven't even started actually doing the research yet. That's the next one.
So the group or the sample size or the sample research group would usually come from the customer if you were the consultant.
If I were the consultant, so I would ask them things like, so again, I'll give a clear example. So let's say, what's a good example? Shampoo. So let's say I have a client and they said that we want to create a new shampoo. So in what way can we differentiate ourselves? Because everyone, like in shampoos, you have the bubbles, the smell, the promise, anti-dandruff, color protection, whatever it is, and the packaging design and the endorser. So those are the variables, and they're saying, okay, in what way can we innovate further? What would people look for in terms of shampoo? And one interesting question that they had, they said that from our market studies, people say that they change shampoos every 3 months because hindi na daw hiyang, hindi naging hiyang yung buhok nila, na parang nasasanay na, nagiging immune na yung buhok nila sa shampoo. So they switch every 3 months. So they said, does that mean that all of our study, all of our research investments doesn't really matter because after 3 months later, people will just switch? Yeah. So they said, what does hiyang mean? and in what way can we work with Hyang. So yeah, on that end, so we had to look for people. So definitely we wanted females because that was a target market. We had to select females, and we chose younger and older. They all had to be the ones who bought their shampoos. It should not be like, mommy bought the shampoo for me.
Mhm.
And then next, we wanted to make sure that we had some people who said that yes, I have one shampoo that I use for like 1 year. This is my favorite shampoos. I only stick to one. And we also had representative of people who said that we use 2 to 3 shampoos in a year, or I buy one new shampoo every 6 months or so, one different brand shampoo.
Mhm.
So those were the ways that we wanted to find out, na parang, again, to test out the idea, the concept of Hyang, of people switching.
Okay. We have some questions in the chat box from Aris. Would you have a formula to achieve an acceptable sample size?
There's no formula. So again, it's in quantitative study, you have your statistical, statistics and all of that, where you'll have acceptable numbers. But in qualitative, you don't really have. However, I would say there's a minimum. Uh, Ideally, for every profile that you select, you have 3. Because, example, let's say I only have 2 people of one profile. Let's say male executive living in Makati. And then, like if I have one male executive living in Makati who's 20 years old and another one who's 40 years old, if this person A says one thing and person B says one thing, where's the pattern? I need one more to to at least break the tie so that I can find out something. So at the very minimum, 3 of a certain profile that you're exploring.
Okay, it's good. Okay, and another one, how can we avoid biases in the selection of the participants?
I guess what do you mean by bias? That's what I asked Bricks. What do you mean by bias?
Siguro parang like for me, for example, if I were to do a research for Spark project, somehow I would have an idea of the sample size that I would approach, or the people, the participants of that sample that I would approach. So for me, feeling ko the bias could be because they're convenient, parang they're reachable. I mean, like I can contact them. I wouldn't go farther na and try to explore. Let's say if my sample is, or if my profile is like social entrepreneurs, we have like immediate network of social entrepreneurs, but maybe the bias for me would be I wouldn't go beyond that network. Is it?
Sure.
Uh,
So I guess goes back to your research question. What is it that you want to find out? Let's say lang for Spark, I use Spark Project as an example. Let's say you want to do a study to find out how can I encourage more people, or how can I make Spark Project better for those for what they call it, the donors,
backers.
the backers. How can I improve the experience of Spark Project for both backers and to
Project.
those who have not yet backed or are not familiar with crowdfunding? So with that, then definitely you need representatives of people who have experience backing Spark Project.
Mhm.
And maybe you might say that they should have backed at least 2 projects in the past,
Mhm.
or 3 in the recent past, like within the past 1 year. And then you might have another group who are aware of Spark Project or are aware of crowdfunding, but have never backed anything before. But they're aware. They should know the concept.
Yeah.
So yeah, with regards to approaching people who are close to you, no problems there, as long as they fit, and as long as they have the right profile to fit the answer that you need. And people in the chat, like Willen and Louis, again, they have participated in curiosity studies before, or at least I've approached them for curiosity studies before. So even if they're within my personal network, as long as they fit the profile and I know that I'll learn from them, then yeah, no problem at all.
Mhm. I think to follow on to your question kay Bricks kanina, yung biases, okay lang ba na mag-interview who comes across with you po? Siguro parang medyo random, like a random sample, or like kung sino yung
Uh,
ganun.
again, as long as they fit the profile that you need.
Okay.
So if I want to do a study about, for a product for females and a guy comes along, then that, it's no good.
Yeah.
Or you want to make a product that is, it's a luxury item, it's a very premium expensive item, and you come across someone who, is not in that price range, then you don't want that.
Uh-huh. Like an example would be siguro you can interview anyone in the mall if like let's say that's the area that you want. Anyone inside the mall. Pero the the scope there is they have to be mall goers.
Yes, yes.
Ganun. So parang
Yeah,
pwede ka mag-randomize, like you can approach
yeah. Because mall going is the study.
study mo.
Yeah.
No? All right. Yeah, I
Okay.
can proceed to the next
Let's
section.
proceed to the next. All right. Finally, after all those preparation, we're now going to conduct the research. So in this part, I'll just really go through very broad strokes. Okay. So before you conduct your interviews or your studies, these are the things that you have to make sure that you follow. So when we're doing our studies and research, you want to be ethical. You want to be ethical. You want to make sure that you are treating the person that you're studying with respect, and you are not putting them in any harm, and you're treating them right. Okay. So first things first, you must obtain informed consent. When you're approaching someone and you want them to take part in your study, you have to you have to explain clearly to them that what the study will be about, how will the information be used, and what kind of information that you're getting from them. So you don't have to reveal every example. You don't have to reveal things like parang what's the brand, specific brand. You can keep that hidden naman. But example, you can say that I'm doing a study for a bank with regards to how we can improve their credit card products, or I'm doing a study for a hospital to improve the appointment system. As long as the people is they're clear na parang okay, na yes, I would like to help that, and yes, I'm willing to share this information with you. They might ask things like, do I have to reveal my bank account to you? No, no. Again, you make it clear lang na parang what is it that you need to get lang from them. So things like kwentuhan lang, gusto lang po namin malaman on kung parang mahirap ba gamitin, kung ano sa tingin yung anong opinion niyo sa bago nilang produkto. As broad as that is fine. If you will be taking photos, videos, or audio records, please make sure that you ask for their consent. So if they say yes, yes to video, or if they say no, then do not. Just follow their will. If you will be entering their home, you also let them know. You can't just like barge in. So just make sure that you are invited. Let's say you want to observe their home, their workplace, or whatever it is. After you get their consent, so you can have consent forms or you can just have it on audio record. Next is that you respect their time and set realistic expectations. So, for example, let's say if you, I've heard of this cases before where sometimes like FGD, tapos minsan 3 hours or more than 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and come on, like no, that's abusing, that's overstaying your welcome na. So as much as possible, respect their time. At the very beginning, when you're going to talk to them, you tell them, parang, so this will take 1 hour of your time. Is that okay? Or this will take an hour and a half. Is that okay? If they say, no, sorry, I have to leave in 45 minutes, then it's up to you as a researcher to shorten, adapt na lang. If they only have 45 minutes, cut your thing to 45 minutes. Select the most important questions and move on quickly. Understand the limitations. Sometimes you might want to ask it, parang, hey, can you do this? I'd like you to try filling up this form. I'd like you to try logging in. But what if they're not able to? What if they're not digitally literate enough? And you can see it in their eyes na natatakot sila. We've done it before. We've had senior citizens who participated in a study and talagang hindi pala bagay sa kanila yung task. So it's up to you to improvise, change, or maybe replace them. Na you end the interview, you tell them parang, you might not be the right participant for this because it's a bit difficult for you. It's okay. Thank you po, and then just move on. Find someone else. Protect their privacy. It's very important to protect privacy because when you're conducting research like this, they are giving their opinions, and sometimes opinions might come back and harm them. For example, let's say you're doing a study for HR, and an employee expresses some disappointments in some HR policies or some interactions with a manager or a boss. You have to keep it private. You have to keep them safe, especially if you are compiling all of these findings to report to the boss who will be designing whatever programs and policies. So you have to make sure that they're protected and they're safe. Even if they say that, no, I want to know who it is, you have to stand by your participants. You have to keep them safe. And finally, addressing power dynamics. When you're talking to someone, you have to acknowledge that sometimes you are not of the same power level. For example, let's say you're talking to someone of the lower income segment or the one of the pyramid, and they will feel intimidated by you. They will feel like they have to please you. So you have to make sure that you approach the research in a proper way. You have to close the gap. So either dress down Don't bring out your phones or anything expensive. You follow their language. Kung if they speak in Tagalog, mag-Tagalog ka rin. If you parang instead of conducting the study in a Starbucks, you do it in their house. If you're in their house, follow what they're doing. Do you remove their shoes, slippers, or socks? Just follow them. Make sure that they feel very comfortable, and you don't make that gap too big. Now, while you're doing the interview, make sure that you have your interview guide or observation guide. So remember we said the difference of research questions and interview questions? This is where you have to create your interview questions. So write down as many questions as you can, as long as that it will all help you answer the research question. So, all of your questions like, what do you think of this? How was your day? Can you show me that? Can you explain this to me? Blah, 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 blah. So just write all those things down para you have a guide. These are guides. You don't have to stick to it precisely. As you're doing your interview, be flexible. If you find something, if they say something new and interesting, explore that direction. Be curious. Just go along with it, and then just go back to your guide once you're done exploring that thread. Just make sure that the guide is just to make sure that you are productive with your time. You're not rambling. You're not puro during your session. So at least you're very professional. You're very efficient. Take notes. So when you're taking notes or photos and videos, because your memory is very, very faulty. And I don't know about you, but my memory is really bad. I don't recall things clearly. So just make sure you jot down your notes. The thing about notes is that you might also misinterpret what they're saying. And usually, that's where the next one comes in. Transcription. Transcribing is very, very helpful, especially if you do it within 24 hours. Write down your notes, write down any quotable quotes, write down your observations, because memory is faulty. You might transform their words into your personal words. Iba yung sinabi nila, and then because the way you transcribe, because the way you remember is different, and you might lose things in translation. Finally, compensate them, especially if your research is going to earn you profit. Like you're doing a study, the study will lead to a 1 million peso product or brand that you're creating. Compensate the person that you're studying. They're giving you their time. They're letting you into their home, or they're giving you giving you their time rather than working, rather than taking care of their kids. So make sure you compensate them for their time. Okay. So when you are making your interview guide, these are like some tips on how you can structure it. So example, you can have questions that gathers detail. So for example, hi, can you describe your typical day? Can you tell me about the last time you did this? Or how do you work with this? Or how's your relationship with that blank person? So these are all parang things to gather detail. Questions to contrast things, again, to compare. So uh, does your other service provider do it this way? How are they better? Are they not better? In what way are they better, not better? Um, Pretend I'm someone new and hindi ko alam to. How would you explain this to me? Or what's the difference between if you submit something via chat or if you submit something via email? Next, probing on what's unsaid. Now, like I said before, observation is very important because sometimes people are not able to articulate things. Body language is very important. Tone of voice is very important. So be observant lang. And sometimes it's very interesting to probe on things that are unsaid. So for example, you're talking about something and biglang tumatawa sila. You can ask, why are you laughing? But ka nakakatawa when I mentioned that you found on how you found parking last night? Or maybe you can tell them if you were to teach your son about buying something, how would you do it? Parang sabi mo mind spa. Ano yung mind spa? Ano yung sabihin yun? Bakit sa mo ito yung fun time mo? Bakit sa mo ito yung relaxing time mo? Bakit nasabi mo ito yung me time mo? What does that mean? What does me time mean for you? So there are certain words na, especially if you're an outsider, it's very interesting to learn the definitions and stuff. This is where you have to be careful na parang if you are familiar with the industry or the thing that you're researching, you have to be careful lang na parang you are assuming na obvious in certain things. They might say something like parang, oh yeah, yung ganyan effective yan. Ikaw parang, and then you go like, oh, effective na, effective. But you fail to probe further because for you, because maybe you were familiar with the topic, you felt like, yeah, I know what effective is. So it'll be helpful to probe further. Okay, so some sample activities while you're doing your interviews, things that you can do. You can ask them to show you. So yeah, show me this, show me that. Yeah, show me the space. Show me how you do this. Show me how you clean up. Show me how you wipe. Show me your workstation. Show me how you log in online. Show me how you record your or make your Instagram posts, whatever it is. Yeah. You just ask them to show you. It'll be very interesting. Card sorting. So it takes a bit of preparation. So you prepare a set of cards and you ask them para to organize things. You know, you might say that, hi, I prepared, like in the photo, we prepared a set of all the illnesses that we could think of. And we asked the mga nanays to say na, can you put a sticker on all the illnesses na na-experience ninyo in your area? And then yeah, they put stickers in that. And once they tag those, then we remove them and we said, okay, can you group them together? And how would you group them together? And surprisingly, lumalabas na parang this set of illnesses comes from summer seasons, and this set of illnesses come from wet, rainy seasons. Or they might say that parang this set of illness are for older people, and this set of illness is for younger people, and so on and so forth. Or this one is for female, this one is for everyone. So these are interesting ways to be able to, again, classify and categorize things. Again, concept testing, you might prepare, things that you want to show them. So yeah, like that what we do in an FGD. Yeah, so yeah, that's conducting your research. So again, you will have limited time with them. Do not overstay. You might have 1 hour to 2 hours max. Make sure that you are prepared. So, spend time to create your interview guide. Don't just wing it. The more prepared you are, the more effective you will be. But be flexible enough. Whatever is in your discussion guide, if they don't have time, decide they have to leave, be flexible, cut, adjust, or if there's something new that's interesting, go through it. If you're asking something and you feel like, okay, this is the wrong question, they're not responding the way I think they're responding, just switch it. Just go with the flow, edit it. But the more prepared you are coming to the research, the more productive it will be. All right. So yeah, I guess I don't think we'll be. I don't think I'll be asking you to make your interview guide now. But if you have questions on this part, feel free to ask away before we move to the next one.
Yeah, Birdie.
Yeah, the next one is the last one.
What is that?
The next part will be the last chapter now.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned a while ago when you're starting to conduct your research or the interviews, one of the things that you would have to tell, or like one of the things that you'll tell, let's say, an interviewee, is that you brief them for the reason of the research. Like, we're doing a research for a bank, or like you giving them context. In your experience, I'm thinking kasi sometimes when you say the purpose of the research, it might give them some bias to say something that is parang when you talk to them, let's say your experience in the bank, all of a sudden, when they start answering the question, it becomes very pro bank, or like may ganung bias. Baka
Sure.
may danger na magkaroon ng bias when you explain to them the context of the research. In your experience, does that become a problem, or usually hindi naman?
So first you have to let's say sa recruitment pa lang, example let's say when you say some na pro bank, in the recruitment you can also have things to keep as restrictors, like this person must not be related to anyone working in the banking industry.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the recruitment na palang, na it's there, like they must not be working with someone in the banking industry, they must not have family members there. You can have those things to be able to control it, para they're not like super pro bank or so. But sometimes you might want some who are super pro bank, because again, it's not bad to have that. What you also sometimes want would be, example, let's say what we often place is they are not rejectors of something. For example, let's say we want to do a study on mouthwash. Let's say we have to study on mouthwash. It's in our recruitment screener na parang this person must not be a rejecter of mouthwash. I think parang if they say na, would you consider using mouthwash? And they say, well, nope, never, not in a million years. I don't want mouthwash ever. Then you don't include them in the study. Kasi no matter what, they will hate it.
Yeah.
So you want people na parang na have used mouthwash, are currently using mouthwash, have not used but are open to using mouthwash, then yun, they can be part of the study.
So, very critical talaga yung choosing the sample, no?
Yes.
And qualifying them.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the group before we proceed to the next and final step?
Okay. Sige. Last. Right. Are you all still okay? Kaya pa?
Yeah, before we continue to the next or the final step, just to check on everybody, if everybody's still there, just say hello and hi. Magparamdam kayo sa chat. Yeah, okay. Hi, Arian. Thanks for sticking uh, all the way till until now. Great. Okay, nice. Hi, Reynaldo, Louis. Okay, great.
Hi, Lizette. All
Nice.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
All ready for step 6?
Step 6. All right. Step 6 assumes that you have now completed gathering your data. So, example, let's say you spent 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks doing all of your interviews, doing all of your observations. You now have so many stories, kasi qualitative. You have so many stories, you have so many notes, you have so many recordings, videos, photos. Now what? Now is the time to make sense out of it. So, this is called synthesis. And synthesis is basically making sense of qualitative data. And this is where usually people might say that it's not hard numbers. Like I talk to 10 people and I have 10 hours of interviews and it's all puro cuento. People are sharing their stories and all those things, but it's not numbers. What can I do with this? Now, there's a lot of things you can do with this. And again, as long as you're clear on what is it that you want to achieve. So if our goal is discovery, if our goal is to understand things, then quality data is very, very useful. Okay. So in synthesis, your goal here is now to be able to make sense of everything, and the end result of your synthesis phase would be actionable insights. It should be very clear recommendations for yourself or your client on what should you do next to be able to achieve your original objectives. Now, what I'm going to show you here are various tools that we commonly use. But there's a lot of tools available. I'm just going to show some examples of the favorite ones that we use. So number one, theme identification. So theme identification would be you write down all your notes. So for example, let's say you make post-its and you write down like what are the pain points, what are the common complaints of people, what are the common delighters of people, what are the common areas, how long does it take, what are the common comments, etc., etc. You create all of these buckets of categories, and then you start writing down your notes. You can use Google Sheets if you're not meeting in person, or Post-its if in person, and then you try to organize it. In this way, if there's maybe if your research team is 3 or 4 people, then this is a way for everyone to gather all of their findings together, and for you to start categorizing and making sense out of it. Then once you group things together, then you'll be able to find, okay, see what's common, like all of the comments here on what they hate. Notice what's the common pattern. There's that root cause. It's that policy that everyone must be blank, blank, blank. So now we know, and can we do something to address it? So that would be theme identification. You try to write everything down, put your notes down, and just group it together. Next, personas. User personas, this would be like you're trying to find out, okay, what's common amongst the people that we've talked to? And this would be parang like, example, let's say through theme identification, you find out parang, notice that we have 3 main problems. Like you have problem number 1, time. Problem number 2, it's hard to use. Problem number 3, it's too strict and inflexible. Your next goal would be to find out, okay, who experiences those things? What if from all the various profiles and people that you've been talking to, you find out that, problem number 1 somehow is limited only to itong group of people. And what's common amongst them is that they're all married and family people, meaning they have less time. So anyone who's married or has kids, you are now kind of sure that they experience problem number 1, which is time. And then next, you look at problem number 2. Problem number 2 would be hard to use. And then you find out, okay, who said these things? who were the people who said that they have problem with hard use, and then you notice parang, they're all not digitally literate, or they might be the older segment. So if they're older, then you kind of know, okay, they're the ones who face this problem. And number three might be, it's too strict, and too strict in terms of inflexible in payment schemes. You might see that it's actually those who are major lower income, or major not steady income, are facing problem number three. So these are ways to be able to segment your user base, or the people that you're serving, into various parang archetypes. So this will be user personas. Uh, for example, user personas can be, um, I'll give an example na very personal. Like me and my wife, when we buy things, we take care of things in a different way. For me, if I buy something like a book, or if I buy a book or a video or board game or whatever, I want to make sure that I use it. I want to read through it. I want to touch it. I want to remove the plastic. I want to really feel and use it. For me, the more that I use something, the more valuable it is for me. But for my wife, for her, something that is valuable for her must be kept protected and pristine. So for her, if she's going to read a book, she's going to read a magazine or any item, it has to be very careful in reading it and touching it, because it is very important for her. It must be preserved. But for me, the more na gusot-gusot na tsaka gamit na gamit na yung mga gamit ko, the more that I placed value on it. Something that I did not touch, for me, is not valuable because it wasn't useful. User personas reveal those things. Like parang you can figure out or at least categorize your groups of people into certain ways. And perhaps if you're designing your products, then like, am I targeting a certain persona lang for my service? And maybe it's not meant for someone else. Next, jobs to be done. So jobs to be done is a way of categorizing to find out why are people using something. So jobs to be done is saying that whenever we choose to use something, whenever we buy something, we buy or use something, we don't just use it only for one reason. We can categorize it into three main things. Either it's functional, social, or emotional. So for example, let's say if I ask you right now, do you have a water jug or a water tumbler? In those of you who have, I ask you, why did you choose that brand? Why did you choose that design? Functionally, any tumbler that you see in the market, in Starbucks, Coffee Bean, or supermarket, they're all the same. They hold water. On a functional level, you buy a tumbler because you want a way to carry water with you when you're outside the house. You might choose kung it's bigger or smaller, handy, or so. Yeah, on a functional level, that one. But on a social level, you might have chosen a tumbler because it looks good. It looks good and it fits your personal fashion style. This one looks sporty. This one looks luxurious. This one looks cute, colorful. Or this one has my brand that I can't be caught dead with that brand. No, this is my brand. So that's on a social level. It makes you look good. It makes you feel accepted with your peers or your social network. Or it helps you interact better or fit with your peers or group. And then finally, on an emotional level, this is more on a personal thing. Like parang, I bought this because it makes me feel happy. I chose this tumbler because I support the mission of this brand. I don't like that brand. That brand is wasteful. This brand, I love. They're social conscious. I love what they stand for. They're eco-friendly. They recycle, blah blah blah. So, or maybe it's the aesthetic. I chose this one because it speaks to me. I really love it for whatever reason. So when people buy things, we should always try to think of when they give their reasons. When we're analyzing all the data, let's try to organize things. Like some of the reasons that they give might be on a functional level, some are on social, some are on emotional. And very interesting, like what I'm presenting here in this slide, it was about coffee. We were doing a study on coffee, and what were the reasons for coffee. For functional, coffee starts your day, wakes you up, gives you energy. But on a social level, coffee is for dating. If you're inviting someone, you want to date someone, coffee is a very low risk, low investment way to date someone. You're not spending for dinner, and it's an easy way to exit if you don't want to continue with the date. On an emotional personal level, some people might say that when I started drinking coffee, it was because I am now an adult. I have moved away from Milo or chocolate drinks. I am now making coffee, or I'm now drinking coffee. I am now more sophisticated. I'm now ready for the workplace. Or I see older people, the people I admire, drink coffee. Ergo, I aspire to be like them, so I'm going to drink coffee. So again, um, all of this influence why someone will go for something. And if you're creating a brand or creating a product and you want it to resonate with people, go deeper. Go deeper than simply functional. If you stick to functional, you're just a commodity. You're replaceable. Next, service blueprints. Service blueprint would be if you are trying to create something that that you want to provide a very holistic, great experience for your customer, from signing up to using your product to paying bills to checking their account to sharing it with their friends to terminating their account. You want to make sure that the whole process is a good one for your customers. So this is where service blueprint comes in. You're trying to organize it based on what is the perspective of my customer, what is the perspective of the frontliners from your team who interacts with them, what is this perspective of the backstage people, like people who the customer does not interact with but definitely plays a part, like someone in HR or someone in IT, someone in legal in the back end, and what are the support processes like your tools, your technology, your policies. What are all of those things that are involved in delivering an end-to-end service for your customers? This service blueprint allows you to map everything out such that when you say that I want to improve my experience, yes, but in what area and which of these little levers and variables do you want to tweak? So it's a great way to really see everything from end to end and to really tagang blow things up and see how all of the um, all of the teams members of your company interacts or plays a role in the customer experience. Next, going back, so I mentioned this earlier, so stakeholder mapping. Stakeholder mapping would be, again, you're trying to find out the interrelationships and dependencies between one to the other. So I'll just give some examples of an actual report that we made. So in this case, we were trying to help this company who was selling, who wanted to sell to sari-sari stores. The sari-sari stores had to get their stock from a branch manager, and the branch manager also had to rely on microfinance institution for capital. So we had to map things out and find out like what were the relationships. So for example, based on all the stories that we got from the branch managers, the microfinance representatives, we were now mapping out, okay, what were the expectations from each one? What did they need from each one? And if we plot it as gray, it meant that this expectation was not met. It was expected, but it was not being fulfilled. Anything with yellow, we said that yes, this one is fulfilled, no problem there. So from branch managers to MFI, from branch managers to the dealers, from the dealers to the resellers, from the resellers to MFI, we tried to map things out. So with this whole understanding of the whole context, we now told our clients, okay, now let's observe all of the things that we mapped out as gray, as pain points, and let's see what can we do so that we can help every single one of them do their jobs right, and so that they can all have a great experience working with our company. So this is one of those ways to organize data. This is what synthesis will bring you. Okay, so key takeaway in synthesis is that once again, once you do your research, once you do your interviews, example, you do 1 or 2 interviews today, you feel like, I feel like I know enough now. I want to get started. I want to do actions. I want to start designing my solutions immediately. So again, hold your horses. So it's very dangerous to jump into early conclusions. As much as possible, gather enough information first, and then do use synthesis tools to be able to make sure and make sense out of things. You don't want you are reacting so strongly based on one anecdote of one person. So you want to make sure that, okay, this person who was so angry shared a very compelling story, but is that such an outlier, or does that story also manifest itself, maybe not as strongly, but it manifests itself in other people that we've talked to? And if it does, then okay, then yeah, then that's something that we have to address. But if it's such an outlier, na one time lang talaga yun, then perhaps it's not a priority. So when you're doing your research, your goal is not just simply to look for nice anecdotes, nice quotes. You want your ultimate goal is to go back to your research questions. Am I answering the research questions? Did I answer them? When I said that I want to define what they mean by effective, did I answer it? Do I now know what did they mean by effective? My goal was to understand how do they compare and contrast service A and B? Do I now understand it? Do I know how they compare it? If the answer is yes, then you did a good job, and then hopefully you now have your insights on how to move forward. You now know what is it that you need to do to be able to achieve your objectives. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it as a quick and easy guide through things.
Okay. Thanks, Birdie. Wait, let's okay.
4 o'clock, exactly 2 hours.
Sakto. Thank you. Okay, yeah, we have time for Q&A, or if anyone from, yeah, anyone would want to share some insights or like what their key takeaways or learnings are for this afternoon, please feel free to put it on our chat room. We do have one question here. It's also a question of mine, from Darius. Going back to getting that sample size, right? So yung getting the right participants. Of course, yun na nga, it's something that we have to define for our own research project. But how will you know, I guess ang question, how will you know if you can say that you've got the right participants?
So the easy one would be that you have the right demographics. That's the easiest.
Mm.
Young, old, rich, poor, male, female, lives in ganyan, married or not married. That's the easy part. The next harder part would be, again, like, what's important for you in terms of psychographics or behaviors. Again, are they users of something? Are they loyal users of something? Mga ganyan klaseng things. So that's the next important thing. The harder one for you would be, madaldal ba yung kausap mo? You want people who are opinionated. You want people who are open to, are chatty.
Yeah.
So, and on our end, Curiosity, we have a recruitment team. The recruitment team's job is to include that. They verify na parang, is this person madaldal ba siya, or opinionated or not. You want people who are very talkative. So, yeah, if someone's like super super quiet and very, like, not open to talking, even if they fit the profile, then it's not going to be a productive session for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Brick says, yeah, I'm pretty sure now most of us are starting to think about our own respective design research projects and how you can apply whatever we've learned, all the things that we've learned this afternoon to our own enterprises or organizations. Yeah, Brick says that he's now thinking of how to apply what you have discussed, Birdie, this afternoon, in our extension project. So it's very informative and helpful. I do have a question. Since we're talking this whole afternoon really delved into design research, but I've also met some guys in the startup industry or the entrepreneurship industry who are into design thinking. Um, is there really two different kinds of like methodologies, or do they supplement each other, or
They
like
need
how
each
do,
other.
yeah, are they one and the same? I don't know.
They're one and the same. So in design thinking, your step number one is empathy.
Mm-hmm.
The empathy is the gathering part.
Okay,
Step two is to define. Define is your synthesis part.
right.
So that part is addressed in design thinking.
Okay.
And once, let's say you are designers, that you create your mock-ups, you create your prototypes, you want to test it. Testing is going back to, again, like I said, it's research. So like I said, design research, you can use it in discovery stage, prototyping stage, or scaling up stage. You can use it in any part.
Okay, okay. And when in for example in a design research project, I know it would vary. Pero is there like a based on your experience in your previous projects, how long does a usual research project take?
Uh, fast one, 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
4 weeks. I mean, even faster would be 3 weeks, but 4 weeks.
Is the 4 weeks the actual the interview na, or kasama na doon yung prep?
Kasama na yung prep. So, a typical project na simple one would be like 1 week is preparation. The preparation would be we create our research design. So that's where we're planning. Okay, what's our framework of analysis? How will we go about it? Who do we need to talk to? So we create our recruitment profile, and with the profile, we create a recruitment screener. The recruitment screener is what our recruiters will use to be able to to filter out people. Then we create our interview guide, observation guide, whatever it is that we need. We collect all materials. If the client has concept materials, videos, prototypes, whatever it is, then if they have prototypes like an app or website, we'll use it ourselves. We have to test it ourselves so that we are familiar with it. And if ever we have our own assessment of it, we're already noting it down na.
Mm-hmm.
Say we said na parang, if we find it hard to use na, fix it na before we test it with the people para at least hindi nasayang yung oras. Kasi we know it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So we do all those things in the first 1 to 2 weeks, all those preparations. And then the recruitment starts. So week 2, 3, and 4 would be data gathering. It depends kung how many. If we're talking like 10 people, it can be finished in maybe 2 weeks. Depends kung how hard to find those people. Let's say, if your study is people who are planning to buy a house during the pandemic, that's going to be hard to find. It's going to be hard. But if you say para people who do laundry, that's easy. You can find it immediately, and then you can do the study in 1 week. Then synthesis would be usually we allow 1 to 2 weeks, again depending on how much data. So, and that includes the report writing now. We process everything, we read through the transcripts, we listen to the videos, we try to see as much data as we can, and then we make our recommended report.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was wondering kasi, like, and so if that's like the quick, like 4 weeks would be like a quick project, or like it's possible.
That's a hard one.
Experience, that's like a long one.
So if we notice that a client has a big project, example, let's say service design, they said, oh, Birdie, we want to improve this whole service. Okay, we tell them, let's chop it up. Let's start with this one. Let's segment it. Because we don't want to make a huge design for one whole thing, one huge thing. Now, after the first part, everything changes. So, or maybe the situation changes. Today's GCQ, tomorrow's MECQ, who knows what tomorrow. So we said, okay, let's chunk it up into small segments. But at least we're very agile in how we do things. So yeah, something harder would be 2 months, and then if it's anything longer than that, we'll recommend a way to chop it up into something smaller bits.
Okay, thanks. Aryan says, yeah, super glad to be here.
We love Comres students. All of Curiosity are Comres people.
Oh, Comres. Actually, that was my question. I want to ask a question. If there's anyone who wants to get into a career in design research, actually the entry point, or alam naman natin kahit sino kasi MIS students tayo yung dalawa, then eventually ikaw design researcher ka na. Pero for anyone who would want to get in, what would be a good jump off point?
So skill number one would be you have at least some background in qualitative research. So again, like I said, commerce people, social sciences. If you have good fundamentals in terms of conducting interviews, focus groups, analyzing things, writing papers, that's your basic fundamental skill. Skill number two would be if you're a designer. So if if you're familiar with design concepts, again, material design, like industrial design, interior design, UX design, apps, the more you don't have to be the designer, but the more you are familiar with all of those things, the more that you can connect what is it that you're learning from the research study to the one who's going to be designing the thing, then you can bridge that gap. You can now translate okay, ito yung sabi nila, ito yung literal application of what you should be doing when you're going to improve something. Third level would be at least understanding business and commerce. Lalo na if your clients are in business, then the more you understand business, like parang profit and loss, marketing, all of those things, then the more you can communicate your ideas better to the stakeholders. If your stakeholders are like the directors, the GMs, the presidents, CEOs, at one point they won't care too much about the font, the color, the ganyan. They want to care, okay, what's the bottom line? How will this really impact me? And then you can really make a case. You can communicate now, this is the findings, these are their problems. And if we transform this into this product, we can improve this by this amount. You can communicate, you can convince them, and an action will happen. If you're talking to foundations like mga government and mga secretaries and USECs, then speak the language of government naman.
Yeah. And that answer will also be useful for anyone who, let's say, some of the attendees here who are founders or who are entrepreneurs and they own their own companies. These competencies might be something that you want to consider, think about when you put together a team who will do the design research. If it's not something that you can source internally, that's not part of your current team. If may gaps, then at least you know what type of competencies you need to help you have a better, let's say, design research team for your design research project.
So there's a question here, do you have any recommended books? There's 100 universal methods of design. Let me just check kung tama nga ba yung ebooks ko. But yeah, universal methods of design is one of my favorite things. Universal principles of design is another And generally, any book about design thinking, design research should be helpful.
Mhm. What I've read a book. Is it here behind me? Yung sa Google, the Sprint one, Sprint.
Yeah,
Is that something that you would recommend?
yeah, yeah.
This I don't know who the author is. It's a blue book. It's the Sprint methodology by Google. Google
Sure.
Labs ba yun? Yeah, you might want to check that out too. Aris asks, is this a good subject for a thesis in the area of business administration or entrepreneurship? He's
I, I
from
don't
Southville.
I don't know how to answer that. Sorry, I don't know how to answer that.
Is this a good subject for a thesis? I think baka the methodology that they will use, a substitute, sorry, is this a good substitute for a thesis in the area of business administration or entrepreneurship?
Design research is a tool. It's a process. It's a tool. So it's not a substitute. It's not a topic. It's a tool. So whatever it is that you're doing for your NTREP class or business admin class, you can use research as part of your tools to understand your customers and whatever it is that you're trying to create.
And Birdie, the output of a design research is the research itself. Can that, I guess, um, depende na lang sa school if that could pass as an academic research. Pwede ba yun?
It can, pero no, again, understand the limitations lang. You
Mhm.
will not have numbers. So
Mm.
if you're, example, let's say you're making a business case, understanding lang na para, okay, these are the pain points of people and these are why the pain point is not solved or these are the reasons why they're experiencing it. These are what they hope to be. But if you end there, it's not enough. You hopefully have enough numbers and economics. Like example, we all want no traffic. We all want no waste. We all want recycling, and yet the economics are not there. It's just hard to fulfill.
Mhm.
And sometimes the technology is not there, the policy is not there. So sometimes you have to have a good understanding and grasp of those other things, Ren, so that your recommendations and actions are holistic.
Holistic. Yeah.
So yeah, design research alone will not solve things.
Mhm. Thanks. Thank you, Brian. Brian says that the book that I'm referring to is called The Design Sprint by Jake Knapp. It's like a sky blue book. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we wrap up or close this session for this afternoon? What is your key takeaway for this for this afternoon session? Ano yung tumatak sa inyo? You can write it on the chat room. What what will you take away from this afternoon session? For me, like having a better understanding of design research. Initially, like my knee jerk reaction to like, okay, I want to do something, I want to launch a new product or service. Ano kagad, parang interview kagad. Hindi research, hindi defining first the research question. Uh, that's something that I want to take away. Like, I start right away from thinking of what interview questions that I like, and somehow kind of like orchestrate it in such a way that it would provide me the right the answers that I want to hear. But
Exactly.
I think the better approach, or yeah, for what I learned this afternoon, is that okay, before you even get into the thinking about the interviews, think first of your design research questions,
Yes.
and even last step before that, so what is your objective? So that's really nice for me. Thanks, Birdie.
Kasi parang if you don't make your research questions and all those planning first, you go do your interview parang like, do you have a phone? How much do you spend on your mobile load? How much do you spend on your allowance? How many times you go to the mall? You know, and then at the end of the whole thing, okay,
Because
then what? Then what? What is it that you really wanted to answer about? You now know everyone's allowance. You now know everyone's how many times they went to the mall. But how can that improve the mall experience?
yeah.
You don't know it.
Mm. Yeah, so yeah, takeaway, asking the right questions leads to a lot of awesome things.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, for you when you mentioned the eight types of questions, ang daming na open nun eh. Na how to conduct the research itself. It's very important to identify the right participants and the right questions. Yeah, very true. Thanks for this session. Learned a lot. One of my takeaways is it's dangerous to prematurely share research outcomes before actually analyzing and synthesizing all that you gathered. Yeah.
Ito yung mga sessions where sometimes, example lang, if you've ever encountered this, one person will share one anecdote and they super strongly will fight for a feature or a decision just because of one anecdote. And as a team, everyone's fighting because you can't come to an agreement na parang, yes, but siya lang ba yun? And,
And I experienced that. Like for example, you get feedback from your customers, right? And then one customer would say something about this, and then for me, minsan, for me, nangyayari, oh, that anecdote would represent everything already about like how good or bad the service is. Where in fact, maybe that was just an outlier. Sometimes because we're so attracted to the exceptional responses of feedback na if it's good, parang you'll celebrate it. Okay, this is the way to go. And if it's bad, parang oh my gosh, or, ano, parang that's the end. Parang no one will ever use this product
yeah.
this anymore. So yeah, being able to see the patterns, I think yeah, and by having a better sample size and not jumping right into conclusions. Galing, need to restructure my objectives. Don't fall in love with your service or product. Love your customer first. All right. Thank you so much for being so participative. I know you have being in this context of like a Zoom webinar, it's so limiting, but thank you guys for being participative nonetheless. Sige, let us just formally close this session. So again, thank you. I'd like to thank Birdie.
Hey, sorry, Patch, if I can, if you can give me share ability to screen share again.
Okay, go ahead. Wait lang.
Share my last closing slide.
Okay, go ahead.
So, well, just again, thank you everyone for being here. So, just to share lang, this is the Curiosity team. So, again, if we're basically a bunch of curious people. So for us, like it's really learning, and if you really enjoy learning, just reach out to us. And yeah, I'd really appreciate if you can refer me to your networks.
Yep. So yeah, you can email Birdie at curiosity.ph. Trivia naman, Birdie, how did you get that name?
It is a design issue yun. So sa Ateneo, Ateneo application form, so college. When I was in fourth year high school pa lang applying for college, lumabas doon na parang, put your nickname. My nickname, I'm Oliver Salva. So, but my nickname at home is Birdie. So kasi my sister, my sister calls me, no, sorry, my parents cannot pronounce it. Hirap sa with the letter V. It's a Chinese family. Hirap sa letter V. So, sa bahay, Oliver. So, naging Berber, naging Birdie. So, my sister, that's her nickname for me at home. When the application form came about, sabi the nickname, ako like parang, okay, what do I place? Parang in all my naivety, I just put Birdie lang. Then comes Orsem, and first day of Orsem, you get your name tag and it says Birdie. Like parang, oh, so here ako, like I was trying to hide it the whole time. Kasi like, sanay ako Oliver lang. But I was trying to hide it the whole time. And this is the time pa lang, Don't Touch My Birdie song. So everyone was making fun of me. And it stuck. And ako naman, I decided to embrace it. Na parang at least I'll be the only one na ating pangalan. So I enjoyed it naman. So there you
go. It leaves an impression. All right. Okay, again, thanks everyone for sticking around this afternoon. I hope you guys learned a lot. Before we end, before we end, we do have a survey, eval form survey. I don't want to call it survey, baka design research. But really, we really want your feedback of this session. Hopefully, you can, take some time to give us some feedback on how the session went for you and how it was for you. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We hope that this workshop with Birdie was useful for your respective enterprises and organizations, and even uh, further or higher learning for you guys. I'd also like to take this opportunity before we end to thank our sponsors and our partners, Globe Telecom. Um, Also, we'd like to also invite you to our upcoming events. So this Sparkability learning sessions that we do in partnership with Globe will be at least for the yeah we have a lot of learning events coming up in the next weeks, and I hope you can join us. One is happening next week. It's a webinar. Teamwork makes the dream work. This is helpful for anyone who works with a team. Unlocking the Enneagram framework to help you develop better team dynamics and culture. So it helps you understand your team better, but also it's a good tool to help you understand yourself as well in your leadership, and using that to be able to create better teams for your organizations. And then that's on October 22. And then on November 5, we have another workshop just like this, but it's focused on social media marketing. So I know patapos na yung taon, so next year for 2021, now is a good time to start planning and strategizing for your social media. Um, for your social media marketing plan. So from story to strategy, we will be joined by Miggy Azurin. He is the managing partner of Husky Digital, and he will help us and guide us through crafting your 2021 social media marketing strategy. And as I said a while ago, this learning session is part of our Sparkability initiative. You can the recording of this session with Birdie, we will upload it at sparkability.org. So if you want to go back to this session, you missed out on a few, or if you want to go back to any of the points that Birdie mentioned a while ago, give us maybe 24 hours to be able to upload the recording of this session there. And also, Sparkability is a place for other courses and resources that help you spark a better normal. It's really intended. We made this with the intention of helping entrepreneurs like you, social entrepreneurs like you, to provide them a platform, a space where they can find resources that can help them spark a better normal. Yeah, so I invite you to go to sparkability.org, not just for the replay of this one, but also to check out our library, our growing library of resources that can help you spark. There. What else? That's it. Again, thank you to our partners at Globe for supporting this initiative of ours. We are together in bringing about social innovation here in the Philippines. Again, thank you again to Birdie. Birdie, thanks for gracing us with and sharing with us your expertise. I know, you know what, guys, what just happened this afternoon, a lot of big companies, multinational companies pay a whole lot for design research, and what Birdie laid out for us this afternoon is super valuable. So in case you want to reach out to him, yeah, you can email him at birdie@curiosity.ph and visit their site to know more about the different services and offerings that they provide, organizations big and small. All right. Thanks, Birdie.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So
All right.
the Google form works.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you again, and have a nice afternoon, and see you next week. I hope you join us in our future events next week, if you are up for it. Okay, so again, many thanks to everyone, and take care and stay safe. Bye.